Guys, these are the key financial habits that made me a millionaire. A lot of people don't understand what is it when I say business building or deep work. Guys, I'm going to break it to you very clearly and simply. This is something anyone can do. You don't need a fancy degree. I think the most important thing I adopted at a relatively young age, when you're in the medical profession, we get started later than most entrepreneurs. They have a decade on us. That being said, I knew I needed to catch up. So getting up early is something that's sort of controversial. Some people think you don't need it. Some people think you do. I found that time was not available, so I had to manufacture time. Only way I could do that is getting up early. Getting up at 4:45 a.m. for the last decade has been a game changer for me. I've essentially built in 2 hours extra in my day that no other physician or other colleague or competitor had. And that really allowed me to work on deep work, focus work, flow state. It allowed me to get into a mindset of victory because I was consistently in optimal state. What I mean by state is like my physiology was triggered. I worked out early in the morning, so I had this endorphins flowing through me. I had epinephrine, I had adrenaline, I had dopamine. And then after the workout, I would devote that into whatever the project I was on, whether it's business building, content creation, consuming information from books, conferences, or courses. And I would translate that into actual momentum. And that momentum is crucial. Second thing this getting up early did was really create stamina. Because if I can do this for long periods of time, then I can run at an exponential pace while my competitors or colleagues or other folks were running at a linear pace. I guess this brings me to the sort of the story that one of my mentors told me one time. He said that, most people think that there's only two modes. There's the people who run a marathon and they run it, they know they're going to run a marathon, so they run it very slowly. And it's 26 miles, so they have to pace themselves. And then there's people who love to sprint, so they run these 100-yard dashes. They run very fast, all out, 400 horsepower. Then there's the rare breed who can sprint the marathon. And then he goes, you should become the third breed. Why would you even want to get up at 4:45? Well, the key really is you have a driving purpose. You have something so delicious that you want to accomplish that it pushes away the fatigue, warm freaking bed that you're in, and you go out into the cold and you brush your teeth and you jump down, you go downstairs. You want to immediately shock your body into activity. But before you do that, you got to hydrate. I would drink a cold glass of water. I would do this thing called athletic greens, this green super powder, if you will. And then a lot of people putz around and waste time. I didn't. I decided to go down, and if I'm have deep work, what that means is I need to create content. I need to create something that requires ingenuity, focus, and concentration for at least 60 minutes. And so I would put on my headphones. I would listen to a soundtrack of music that I always listen to, and it's epic music, soundtracks of epic movies. I'd listen to it. It gets me into sort of an alpha state. All that means is essentially a deep focus state. Let's say I had to create a PowerPoint for a investor webinar for my company, Viking Capital. Then I would crank out 45 minutes to an hour of that PowerPoint. I would lose track of time. What would take me normally 4 hours to do, I can do it in 1 hour. That's what I call a deep flow state. In terms of business building, I was doing so many different businesses throughout my life. I've run a medical staffing company. I've done a real single family homes and fix and flips, multifamily syndication company, wellness, integrative functional medicine clinic. There's certain things of tasks I need to get done that won't allow me to get done in the normal amount of time because there's meetings, there's kids, normal work, your W-2 work. And so you have to carve out time to create that. I call that time business building, and I do it first thing in the morning. There's a mentor I follow named Brian Tracy, and he talks about eat that frog. Most tasks are not fun to do. They're disgusting. And so he goes, if you have to quote unquote eat that frog or do this task, might as well do the worst, hardest, challenging task first. Embrace the suck. People ask me, what are the financial habits? I think it's this concept of delayed gratification, which is a buzzword a lot of people talk about. It's been sort of part and parcel of my life for the last 30, 40 years. While I could live a larger life, better car, better house, fly first class, and do all these things that the wealthy people on paper do, I've chosen to have that delayed gratification. That delta of money that I could take to enjoy and reinvest in a couple things. I believe in a philosophy of, number one, reinvesting yourself. I think it's a 30x ROI. When you reinvest in yourself through education, coaching, conferences, some type of mindset elevation, it's hard to fathom the kind of ROI on that. The second thing I like to reinvest in is my company. And then finally, the last thing I like to reinvest on is things like real estate or stocks or investments. I think you can get a 2 to 3x ROI on that. This is my mindset. I always do these three levels of investment first, and then I get to buy my toys. I get to buy the Porsche. I get to do all the other fun things, but only after I go through this framework. A lot of people want like a hack, a secret financial habit. If they did this, they can go from making $50,000 a year to 100 to maybe $1 million a year. To be honest with you, I go against the typical grain. I buy nice clothes if I think it suits me and gives me pleasure, but that's where I differ from a lot lot of the gurus. And I think if you're listening to like Susie Orman or a Dave Ramsey, you're set for a comfortable, mediocre, non-millionaire life. I think the people that really have true financial success, they have some financial investing, but they're really trying to create more assets instead of buying used up, weak assets that other people have already developed, like money markets, like CDs, like investing in the S&P 500. My path to financial independence and success is really asset accumulation and asset creation through utilization and skill creation. I try to make myself as valuable as possible in as many arenas as possible and achieve mastery where I could, and then build a team around places where I couldn't, and become a level 10 entrepreneur in a level 10 opportunity. Most people are level 2 entrepreneurs doing like level 2 opportunities, and so they're never going to hit that goal. And it's really mastering those 4 fulcrums of leverage we all know, right? Labor, code, media, and capital. Are there real habits, or is it acquiring skills? And I'd say, look, acquire the skills so you can acquire more assets. It's all about acquiring assets. Assets will essentially drive your wealth. The meta skill of learning, meta learning, like rapidly consuming information. Why the freak are you here on earth? What are you meant to do? What skills can you acquire in the shortest amount of time with the greatest utility to help you achieve that purpose? And if you did that, you'd stop being in people's zone of excellence and you jump into your own zone of genius. What do I mean by that? We're good at a lot of things. Most people, if you have a decent IQ, decent exposure to schooling, you can do a lot of things. And that's what most people spend their life doing. Things that are relatively good at, maybe 6, 7 out of 10 skill set and 7 out of 10 enjoyment. How does the Steve Jobs, the Mozarts, the Magnus Carlsens of the world, how are they, quote unquote, what we call geniuses? How are they visionaries? It's because they've taken a level 10 skill set they developed and they put into a level 10 passion or zone of genius. They're willing to put the energy, time, and effort, and it's not work for them, it's play. And so of course they're going to spend more time there than you are. And then that compounds over time. It looks very similar over 1 year, but over 10 years, that's when the lines start separating out. I think figuring out what you're really good at and then learning to cut away the noise, the distractions, diving into that. If you happen to be passionate about as well, that's even better. Your ikigai, right? What the world needs, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and what you can get paid for. If you can get that nexus, that synergy, man, the world better watch out. And guys, a lot of people think, what is this ikigai? It's really a Japanese word for your reason for being. In Indian, people call it dharma. It's really a collection of skills, passions, hobbies, interests, and overlaying that with what the world would need. And if you happen to have that synergy, that sync, it really allows you to channel your inner greatness. Why don't I ever curse? I do my best not to curse because I want to be a gentleman. I want to tap into my genius. I think when you curse, when you swear, when you lose your temper, when you lose your emotional stability, you can devolve. So the key is, how do you become beast mode without becoming an animal? Like, how do you create like this kind of monk mode where you're a high achiever, but still keep an edge? And that's really the balance I've been trying to achieve all my life. I feel like there's an inner beast inside me. I could swear, I could yell, I could do alcohol, I could do all these extreme activities, but it's channeling this rage, this animal instinct into what I call a warrior poet. It's sort of this monk warrior kind of mode where you're able to take the best of your creativity, the best of your genius, but keep your raw talent and raw instinct and marry them. And I think that's what I'm trying to achieve. That's why I don't curse. A lot of people ask me, hey, what triggered this? There's some people I admire, but they curse like a sailor, like Tony Robbins. There's other people who don't curse at all, like Robin Sharma, who have such a power with their language. And I was just trying to say, like, look, it's easy to curse. And I know sometimes it's used for emotion, it's used to trigger people. And so sometimes, rarely I do use some of that language, but in general, I try not to, because I think it's an easy way to get people going. It's almost like you're hitting the mule, and of course the mule is going to go forward, but can you evoke that same energy or passion or that response with other powerful language? And I'm trying to find more of that and use more of that. I used to curse in college. I was trying to fit in. I was trying to be part of the many, but I was reading a book by David Goggins, whom he curses a lot. He's one of my heroes, and I love what he says in his book Never Finished, which truly inspired me. He says he wants to be uncommon among uncommon people. And I love that. I want to do things that are difficult but are worthy. And I really want to fly my own ship. I'm sailing my own journey. And I think I'm trying to create this very unique life of mine that only I know what it looks like. And I think this is all part of it.